Hi, I'm Eric from Simply Elegant Home Cooking. Today I'm going to be sharing a special recipe. We're going to be doing Thanksgiving Day stuffing with parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. This dish is actually a family tradition in my household. My mother has been cooking it with the exact recipe I'm going to demonstrate. I've been having it this way for over 30 years, and she's actually here with me in my home kitchen studio. So let's get started. And here's my mom, Cheryl. She's going to show you the perfect method to dry out the bread for the stuffing.
We'll be using a 1.4-ounce loaf of store-bought Italian bread for our stuffing.
And you want to cut the bread using this exact method that my mom is demonstrating. You can take 2 or 3 slices at a time, and you just want to cut it kind of gently. Use a bread knife. That'll prevent you from mashing the bread. And you just want to go crosswise and cut the bread into a medium-sized dice.
The bread has been cut into medium-sized cubes and spread onto 2 parchment-lined baking sheets. They will go into a 250-degree preheated oven for 30 to 45 minutes until dry.
And while we dry the bread, this is actually a perfect time to prep the veggies. So what you want to do, you want to take 3 to 4 stalks of celery. I used about 4 small stalks, and you want to dice it up really fine like this. And I took 1 large yellow onion, and I minced that up fine as well. You're looking for a consistency about like that. And in addition to the veggie prep, you can also prep your fresh herbs. Now this is really important to use fresh herbs, so much better than dried, and there's just a lot of flavor there. So we have parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, just like the lyrics of the song. And you want to use about a half a cup of the fresh Italian parsley. You'll notice I have a little bit more of that. We have about 2 tablespoons each of the sage, rosemary, and thyme. They have a much stronger flavor, so you need to just use a little bit less of them. Okay, and with so much of that prep, it's just really important to get everything prepped before you start the cooking process. That's actually the hard part, and we got that out of the way. So what you want to do next, you want to take a large skillet or a large pan, and we're going to start preheating this on about medium heat. We're going to let that come up to temperature for just a minute or two. And as that pan heats, we're going to add just a little bit of extra virgin olive oil. You don't need much, maybe a tablespoon or 2. And to that, we're going to add 1 stick of butter. So we're just going to add that in there and let it all melt before we add the veggies. Okay, and that butter's still melting, has a little bit to go. But when it looks about like this, you can go ahead and add in your onion and your celery. And once you get everything in the pan, you just want to continue to stir just to evenly incorporate everything in the butter. And what we want to do, we want to cook this for a couple minutes. We don't want to brown it though. We just want to gently let it soften. So we're going to let this go for maybe about 4 to 5 minutes just to soften it a bit, and we'll check back. Okay, and once that stick of butter melts all the way in, our mixture looks a little something like this. Now at this point, we just want to season it a little bit. So I'm going to add some salt and some cracked black pepper. And once you get that salt and pepper in there, you just again want to stir it all to evenly incorporate it. So you can see that butter is sizzling away. We just need to let this go for a couple minutes and we'll be ready to go. Okay, and we're just about 5 minutes into the cooking process on the onion and celery, and that's as far as you want to take it. At this point, it looks perfect. So I'm going to turn off the heat, and we're just going to let that cool for just a minute or two, and we'll be ready to assemble our stuffing in the baking dish. And at the same time I took those veggies off the stove, the bread actually finished up. We let it go for a full 45 minutes, and that's what you're looking for. It should be dried out and be kind of crunchy, and it should have a sound to it. You know, when you move it around in the pan, that's how it should sound. Okay, and to assemble the stuffing, you just want to use a really large container. If you have an extra large bowl, that works great. I don't, so I'm going to use a large stock pot, which also works quite well. I've put all the breadcrumbs in, and next I'm going to go in with the sautéed veggies and the butter. Okay, so off camera, I added those in, the celeries and onion. So at this point, you want to mix it gently. My mom is going to just very gently mix this up a little bit to evenly incorporate those veggies into the breadcrumbs.
Next, we're going to add the fresh herbs, the parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme, and incorporate them as well.
Okay, and we're also going to add some homemade turkey stock. I already added a little bit off camera. Going to add a little bit more for a total of about 1.5 to 2 cups. This is really important to get all that turkey flavor into your stuffing. So we're going to add that and stir this around. We might need to use a little bit more, but I say, start with 1.5 to 2 cups. And if you need a little bit more, you can always add it later, but you can't take it out. Okay, so after mixing in that stock, this is a good time to do a taste test. I'm just going to grab one piece and taste it. So, a couple things I noticed. Number one, we need to add a little bit more of the stock. I'm going to add about another half cup of the stock, and I'm also going to add a little bit more salt. Because this is homemade stock, it doesn't have very much salt in it at all. If you use a store-bought, you obviously have to monitor that, but this is lacking a little bit of seasoning, so we're going to go in with a little bit more salt and a little bit more of the turkey stock. Okay, so we used the rest of the stock. This was a total of 2.5 cups of the homemade turkey stock that we used, and I added a little bit more salt, stirred it all up off camera. So this now tastes perfect. I sampled it again, and it's perfectly seasoned. At this point, we're ready to put the stuffing into a glass baking dish. Okay, so I have a 9 by 13 glass Pyrex dish, and what I'm going to do, I'm going to go in with a little bit of softened butter, and you can actually just use your hand for this. We just want to coat the bottom of the pan a little bit to add a little bit of flavor and to prevent it from sticking. So I'm going to go ahead and continue to do this off camera until we have a nice even coat all over the Pyrex dish. Okay, and here's how our buttered dish looks now that I have spread it evenly. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to take our stuffing mix and evenly spread that out into this baking dish as well. Okay, so once you get the stuffing in the pan, you just want to take a flat spatula and press down on it gently just to kind of evenly incorporate everything into the pan as my mom is demonstrating. You don't need to use a lot of pressure. Just do it like so. Okay, so at this point everything is situated and we're ready to go. As we bake this in the oven, we have the oven preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm just going to cover it with some foil. We're going to bake it with the foil for 30 minutes, and we're going to take the foil off and finish for an additional 15 uncovered. Okay, and that's how our stuffing looks. This looks cooked absolutely perfectly. You want to let it crisp up a little bit on the top, and I actually let this go a little longer than I thought I would need. I let it go for 30 minutes with the foil, and then I let it go about an additional 25 uncovered. Sometimes you have to adjust a recipe on the fly and go by looks and feel, but this was in for about 55 minutes and it looks perfect. We're ready to serve this up. Okay, so here's the final dish served up. Thanksgiving Day stuffing with parsley, sage, rosemary, and thyme. Again, this is a family tradition in my household. We've been making stuffing this way for over 30 years since I was a kid. I really hope you enjoyed this. I hope you take this recipe and make it a tradition in your own house. I'm Eric from Simply Elegant Home Cooking. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.